All right, my ladies, settle. Never been so damn good at something folks tried to bury you for it. I'm John Doe, your 58-year-old New York yarn spinner, spilling stories from this beat-up Brooklyn armchair with a bourbon buzz and a heart full of sass. Picture me, a grizzled bastard who's dodged too many punches and loved too many fights, whispering to you gals, my wise, wild sisters who know life's a tough old bitch but still dance through it. Tonight, I'm serving up Ellie Parker, a Queensboro cleaner who outsmarted a room of hotshot lawyers and made a CEO eat his ego. It's got grit, heart, and enough fire to warm your bones. So, grab your wine, hit that subscribe button, and drop a comment, share your own badass moments. Let's roll, my ladies. The 42nd floor of Hunt & Langford LLP glowed like a goddamn spaceship. All sleek glass and LED lights that made the Manhattan skyline outside look like a cheap backdrop. Ellie Parker, 25, pushed her cleaning cart down the marble hallway, the wheels squeaking against the polished floor, blending with the low hum of the vacuum she'd just shut off. Her silver-gray janitor's uniform was stained with bleach and sweat, but her brown eyes burned with a fire no one bothered to notice. It was past 11 p.m., the city that never sleeps twinkling beyond the windows. But Ellie was bone-tired. She'd been on her feet since dawn mopping floors here, slinging burgers at Fat Joe's Diner in Queensboro, counting every damn dollar to keep her mom, Marie, hooked to a heart monitor. She paused outside the main boardroom, where light spilled from under the door, voices loud with laughter and the clink of wine glasses. Another big deal, probably some $1 million contract that'd never touch her world. Ellie wasn't nosy, but she lingered, ear-tilted, not to spy, but to feel. Just for a second, like she was part of something bigger. As a kid in the Queensboro projects, she'd dreamed of standing in rooms like that, arguing cases, making a difference. Now, she was just the chick who scrubbed their coffee stains. She reached into her worn canvas bag, pulling out a dog-eared law book in French. Droit International, borrowed from the community library. Ellie had taught herself French at 15, picking up phrases from her Haitian grandma, then diving into legal texts to fuel her dream of becoming a lawyer. She whispered terms to herself, force majeure, clause suspensive like they were spells to escape her life. One day, her resume wouldn't be tossed by firms like this. One day, she'd be seen. The boardroom door swung open, and Ellie jumped, the book slipping from her hands to the floor with a thud. A tall man stepped out, his navy suit tailored to perfection, dark hair slicked back, blue eyes cold as ice. Alexander Hunt, 37, CEO of Hunt & Langford, the legal world's golden boy, known for his genius and his ruthless streak. Forbes had called him from nothing to the top, a rags-to-riches story Ellie once admired. Now, his gaze raked over her, landing on the book at her feet. "What the hell are you doing?" His voice was low, dripping with sarcasm. "Snooping on company secrets during your shift?" Ellie scrambled to grab the book, her heart pounding like a jackhammer. "No, sir, it's mine." She stood, clutching it to her chest, her cheeks burning but her chin high. Alexander raised an eyebrow. Stepping closer, he tilted his head, reading the cover. Droit International, a janitor reading international law in French. He laughed, a sharp sound that cut like glass. "Seriously? Or are you just trying to look cute for someone?" Ellie's grip tightened, her pride stinging. She knew his story, poor kid from Ohio. Clawed his way to Yale Law, built an empire. She thought he'd get it. But that laugh said he was just another suit who saw her as nothing. "I read to learn," she said, her voice steady but firm, not to impress anyone. Alexander crossed his arms, a flicker of curiosity in his eyes, like he'd found a puzzle he didn't expect. "Learn for what?" "To mop floors better," he smirked, turning toward the boardroom, where the voices grew louder, a heated debate about some contract. "Since you're playing smart, come in here." Ellie froze. Janitors weren't allowed in boardrooms, especially not during meetings. Her supervisor's warning echoed, "Stay invisible, or you're out." But Alexander's challenging stare, that smug tilt of his mouth, made her blood boil. No way she was backing down. She took a deep breath, pushed her cart aside, and followed him, the book still in her hands. The boardroom smelled of expensive cologne and tension. The mahogany table cluttered with papers, laptops, and a half-empty bottle of Bordeaux. 7 lawyers in tailored suits sat around it, their eyes snapping to Ellie like she was a cockroach scuttling across their steak. Grayson, a silver-haired senior attorney, was mid-sentence, waving a contract at a French partner on a video screen. Alexander held up a hand, silencing him. "Gentlemen, we've got a surprise guest tonight." His voice was mock-serious, the word guest dripping with scorn. He turned to Ellie. "This janitor claims she reads French law. So, let's see it." He grabbed the contract, flipped to a dense page of fine print, and tossed it at her. "Translate this. If you're as smart as you think, prove it." Laughter erupted, sharp and mean. Grayson shook his head, muttering. "This is a circus." A younger lawyer snorted, whispering to his neighbor. "What's next?" "She argues in court." Ellie felt their stares like needles, her hands trembling not from fear, but from fury. They thought she was a joke, a prop for their amusement. Alexander leaned against the table, arms crossed, his smirk daring her to fail. She wasn't going to. Ellie took a breath, steadied her hands, and read. Her voice was clear, each French word precise, cutting through the room like a blade. Clause 7.2. La partie A assume la pleine responsabilité en cas de retard de paiement, sauf disposition contraire. She paused, translating smoothly. Party A assumes full liability for payment delays, unless otherwise stated. She looked up, locking eyes with Alexander. But there's a problem. Your English version says liabilities split 50-50. That's wrong. Sign this as is, and you're fucked if the partner screws you over. The room went dead silent. Grayson snatched the contract, his face paling as he scanned the French text. She's right, he stammered, flipping pages. How the hell did we miss this? He turned to the others, panic creeping into his voice. Who handled the translation? The French partner on the screen nodded, his expression shifting from skepticism to respect. C'est exact. Cette erreur pourrait coûter cher. He glanced at Ellie, adding, Merci, mademoiselle. Alexander stood frozen, his hand gripping the table's edge, his smirk gone. His blue eyes bored into Ellie, no longer mocking but unsettled, like she'd just pulled the rug out from under him. He couldn't admit it, a janitor had saved his firm from $1 million mistake, but he wasn't about to let her bask in it. Not bad, he said, his voice cold. But don't get cocky. Get back to your mop, girl. Ellie didn't budge, her gaze unflinching. I didn't come in here to show off, she said, low and sharp. You dragged me in. If you don't want the truth, don't mess with me next time. She turned, grabbed her cart, and walked out, the squeak of the wheels echoing in the stunned silence. The lawyers exchanged glances, Grayson still clutching the contract, the French partner murmuring approval. Alexander stared at the door, his jaw tight, a strange heat in his chest. He hadn't been challenged like that in years, not since he was a kid in Ohio, mocked for dreaming of law school. Ellie Parker wasn't just a janitor, she was trouble. Back in the hallway, Ellie leaned against the wall, her heart racing. She'd done it, stood up to the suits, proved she wasn't invisible, but the sting of their laughter lingered. She thought of Marie, hooked to machines in their cramped Queensboro apartment, and Jasmine, her roommate, who'd always said, "You're too damn smart for this shit." Elle. She'd fought for a moment of respect. But what now? She wasn't naive. People like Alexander didn't see people like her. Not really. As she pushed her cart toward the elevator, a shadow fell across her path. Sophia Langford, 32, senior attorney and Alexander's ex, stood there, her blonde hair gleaming, her red dress hugging her curves. Her smile was a blade, her green eyes venomous. Nice little show. Parker, she said, her voice low, meant to wound. But don't think you can play lawyer just 'cause you read a book. You're a nobody, and I'll make sure you stay that way. Ellie's fists clenched, but she kept her voice steady. I'm not playing anything. If you've got a problem, take it up with your boss. He's the one who called me in. She pushed past, ignoring Sophia's glare, but the words stuck like thorns. Sophia wasn't just another suit, she was a predator, and Ellie had just painted a target on her back. The elevator dinged, and Ellie stepped inside, the book still clutched to her chest. She caught her reflection in the mirrored door's tired eyes, messy hair, a uniform that screamed nobody. But she wasn't nobody. She'd proved it, even if it cost her. Back in Queensboro. She climbed the creaky stairs to her apartment, the smell of antiseptic hitting her as she opened the door. Marie slept under a thin blanket, the heart monitor beeping softly. Ellie sank into a chair, the night replaying Alexander's smirk, Grayson's panic, Sophia's threat. She opened her laptop, typed an email to Alexander, pointing out another contract typo she'd spotted, and hit send. She didn't expect a reply, but it wasn't about him. It was about her, about proving she belonged, even if the world didn't see it yet. She glanced at Marie, whispering, I'm not done, Mom. I'll show them. But as she closed her eyes, Sophia's voice echoed, and she knew the fight had just begun. The next day, she'd be sent to the basement, a punishment for daring to shine. But Ellie Parker didn't break easy. She'd keep swinging. For Marie, for herself, for the dream no one could steal. Think talent can beat the bullshit. Stick with Ellie's fight on Soul Stories. Smash that subscribe button and drop a comment. Share your underdog story. The basement of Hunt and Langford LLP was a tomb, a dank maze of flickering fluorescent lights and moldy air that smelled like forgotten dreams. Ellie Parker, 25, pushed a broom across the concrete floor, dust swirling around her silver-gray janitor's uniform. The hum of the HVAC system drowned out the distant buzz of Manhattan's 42nd floor above, where lawyers in $1,000 suits closed deals that'd never touch her life. Down here, it was just her, stacks of yellowed files, and a desk lamp that buzzed like a dying insect. A week ago, she'd stood in the boardroom, shutting down a $1 million mistake with a French contract, proving she was more than a mop. Now, she was buried underground, a punishment for daring to shine. Ellie's hands, calloused from years of scrubbing, gripped the broom tighter as she thought of that night, Alexander Hunt's cold smirk, Grayson's muttered circus, Sophia Langford's venomous promise to keep her in her place. She'd sent Alexander an email afterward, pointing out another contract typo, half expecting a reply, half knowing she'd get nothing. She didn't. Instead, she got this reassigned to the basement, effective immediately, no explanation needed. The message was clear: know your place. Janitor girl. She paused, wiping sweat from her brow, and glanced at the corner she'd claimed as her own. A rickety table held her law book, Droit International, its pages dog-eared from late-night study. Next to it, a cracked coffee mug from Fat Joe's Diner, where she still pulled shifts, and a photo of her and her mom, Marie, smiling at a Queensboro street fair years ago. Marie's heart condition had worsened since then, each hospital bill a brick on Ellie's chest. The $200,000 for a transplant was a pipe dream. But Ellie kept fighting, because giving up wasn't in her blood. The basement door creaked open, and Jasmine Carter, Ellie's roommate and best friend, slipped in. Her nurse-in-training scrubs wrinkled from a double shift. Her braids were pulled back, and she carried 2 styrofoam cups of coffee, the cheap kind from the bodega down the street. Jesus. Elle, this place is a shithole, Jasmine said, setting a cup on the table. They really sent you to the dungeon for being smarter than them. Ellie managed a tired smile, taking the coffee. Guess I pissed off the wrong suits. Sophia Langford's got it out for me. Jasmine snorted, leaning against a file cabinet. That rich bitch. She's just mad you made her look like an idiot. You're too damn smart for this mop. Girl, why you still fighting for those assholes for Mom? Ellie said softly, her eyes on Marie's photo. She's all I got. Every buck I make goes to her bills. If I quit, we're screwed. Jasmine's face softened, but her voice stayed sharp. You're killing yourself. Elle, 2 jobs. Studying law in this hellhole, you're gonna burn out. You're worth more than this. Ellie shrugged, sipping the coffee, its bitterness matching her mood. Worth don't pay the rent. Jazz, I gotta keep going. She didn't say the rest that she was scared, that the boardroom moment felt like a fluke, that maybe Sophia was right. Maybe she was just a nobody playing pretend. Jasmine sighed, grabbing her bag. I'm working the night shift, but call me if you need me. Okay? Don't let those pricks win. She hugged Ellie quick and left, the door slamming behind her. Ellie was alone again, the basement silence pressing in. She sat at the table, opened her law book, and started reading, whispering French terms like a prayer. Clause résolutoire, responsabilité contractuelle. Each word was a step toward a dream she refused to let die, even if it felt further away every day. That night, back in their Queensboro apartment, The smell of antiseptic hit Ellie like a fist. The place was a shoebox peeling wallpaper, a leaky faucet dripping into a bucket. The hum of Marie's heart monitor filling the cramped living room. Jasmine was at the hospital, and their other roommate, Luis, a line cook, was working late. Ellie set her bag down quietly, not wanting to wake Marie, who slept under a thin blanket, her silver hair tangled on the pillow. She tiptoed to the kitchen, pulling out a stack of bills from a drawer, hospital invoices. Rent, utilities, each one a reminder of how close they were to losing everything. She sank into a chair, her head in her hands. When something caught her eye, an envelope tucked under a pile of junk mail, stamped with the hospital's logo. Her stomach twisted as she opened it, scanning the letter dated a year ago. It was a treatment plan for Marie's heart, a surgery that could have stabilized her condition, marked declined by patient. A handwritten note from Marie was clipped to it. Ellie, I couldn't let you pay for this. You need to live your dream. Love. Mom. Ellie's hands shook, her breath hitching. She stormed to Marie's bedside, her voice low but trembling. Mom, wake up. What the hell is this? Marie stirred, her eyes fluttering open, weary but warm. Ellie, baby. What's wrong? This. Ellie held up the letter, tears burning her eyes. You turned down surgery. You could have died. Mom. Why didn't you tell me? Marie's face crumpled, her voice a whisper. Because it had cost everything. Ellie, you were working 2 jobs, studying for that law dream. I couldn't let you give it all up for me. Give it up. Ellie's voice cracked, anger and grief colliding. You're my mom. You think I'd choose some damn degree over you? I'd burn the world down to keep you alive. Marie reached for her hand, but Ellie pulled back, pacing the tiny room. You had no right to hide this, she said, her throat tight. You think I'm strong enough to lose you? I'm not baby. You're stronger than you know, Marie said, tears spilling down her cheeks. I wanted you to fly, not be stuck here, paying for a sick old woman. You're meant for more. Ellie stopped, her chest heaving. She wanted to scream, to cry. But Marie's words hit deep. She sank to her knees beside the bed, grabbing her mom's hand. We're a team, Mom. No more secrets. Okay. We fight this together. Marie nodded, squeezing her hand. Together. They sat in silence, the heart monitor beeping, the weight of the truth settling between them. Ellie's anger faded, replaced by a fierce resolve. Marie's sacrifice wasn't just a wound, it was a fire, pushing her to keep going, to prove her mom's faith wasn't misplaced. But the hospital bills, the basement, Sophia's threats, they loomed like storm clouds. And Ellie wasn't sure how much fight she had left. The next day, back in the basement, Ellie was sorting files when her phone pinged with an email from Alexander Hunt. Her heart skipped, expecting another dismissal. But the subject read, Pro Bono Program Opportunity. She opened it, her eyes narrowing as she read Ellie. Your contract notes were spot on. We're launching a pro bono program for underserved clients. I want you on it part-time, paid, working cases with our team. This isn't charity. It's a chance to show what you can do. Say yes. Alexander Ellie's first instinct was to delete it. "I don't need your damn pity," she muttered, her pride bristling. Alexander Hunt, with his fancy suits and icy eyes, didn't get to play hero. But then she thought of Marie, of the letter, of the dream she'd clawed for in this basement. This wasn't just a job, it was a foot in the door, a chance to be more than a janitor. Still, she wasn't about to roll over for him. She typed a reply, her fingers hesitating. "Mr. Hunt, I'll join, but not as your charity case. I'm in as an equal, or I'm out. Ellie." She hit send, her pulse racing. She didn't trust Alexander, not yet, but she trusted herself. If he thought she'd bow and scrape, he was in for a surprise. That evening, she stopped by Fat Joe's for a quick shift, the diner's neon sign buzzing outside. Jasmine was there, grabbing takeout, her eyes lighting up when Ellie told her about the email. "Hell yeah. Elle," she said, slapping the counter. "You're gonna show those suits what's up, but watch that Hunt guy. He's got that I'm a big deal vibe." Ellie laughed, but it was strained. "Don't worry. I'm not here to make friends with the boss." She thought of Alexander's email, the way he'd called her notes spot on. Was he serious? Or was this another game she didn't know? But she'd play it her way. Back in Queensboro. Ellie sat by Marie's bed, reading her a French law article to keep her calm, the words a soft rhythm against the monitor's beep. Marie smiled, her hand squeezing Ellie's. "You're gonna make it, baby," she whispered. Ellie nodded, her throat tight, but doubt gnawed at her. The basement was her reality. Sophia's threat was real, and Alexander's offer felt like a trap. But as she closed her law book, she saw Marie's letter on the table, its words a quiet vow. You need to live your dream. Ellie wasn't just fighting for herself anymore. She was fighting for her mom, for every kid in Queensboro who'd been told they weren't enough. And she'd be damned if she let anyone stop her. The neon buzz of Fat Joe's diner cut through the Queensboro night, its flickering sign casting a sickly glow over the cracked sidewalk. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of sizzling burgers and stale coffee, the jukebox coughing out an old Tupac track. Ellie Parker, 25, moved through the late crowd like a shadow, her apron tied loose over jeans, her eyes hollow from a double shift. She balanced plates of fries and shakes, dodging a drunk guy's clumsy grab, her mind a million miles from the diner's chaos. 3 days ago, she joined Hunt and Langford LLP's pro bono program, a chance to prove she was more than a janitor. Now, the world seemed hell-bent on reminding her she was nothing. The rumors had started small whispers in the law firm's hallways, snickers from suits who saw her mopping the basement. "Janitor girl thinks she's a lawyer," they'd said, loud enough for her to hear. But this morning, it exploded. The New York Post ran a hit piece, courtesy of Sophia Langford, Alexander Hunt's ex and senior attorney cleaner fakes lawyer. Target's CEO. Plastered across the page was a grainy photo of Ellie in the boardroom, holding that French contract, with a photoshopped email suggesting she'd stolen firm secrets to impress Alexander. The caption was a knife from mops to millionaires. Ellie Parker's playing a dangerous game. Ellie's hands shook as she cleared a table. The paper's words burned into her brain. Gold digger. Fraud. Slut. The comments online were worse, tearing her apart for daring to exist in their world. At Hunt and Langford, Colleagues avoided her, their glances sharp with judgment, even in the basement, where she still worked her cleaning shift. The janitorial staff whispered, thinking she'd slept her way into the pro bono gig. Her pride, the one thing she'd clung to through years of scraping by, was being shredded. She dropped a plate into the dish bin, the clatter lost in the diner's noise. Old Joe, a regular who always ordered pancakes, slid his coffee mug toward her, his weathered face kind but hesitant. "Didn't peg you for a sellout." "L," he said, voice low. "Thought you were better than chasing some rich guy." Ellie's chest tightened, her voice barely a whisper. "I'm not chasing anyone, Joe. I'm just trying to survive." She turned away, blinking back tears, and busied herself wiping the counter. Joe's words hurt more than the tabloids. These were her people truckers, night shift nurses, Queensboro folks who'd tipped extra when Marie got sick. Now, even they saw her as a traitor. Jasmine Carter, her roommate and best friend, pushed through the diner's door. Her nurse-in-training scrubs rumpled from a hospital shift. She slid into a booth, waving Ellie over. "Girl, you look like shit," Jasmine said, tossing her braids back. "Saw that Post article. Sophia's out for blood." "Huh?" Ellie sank into the seat, rubbing her temples. "She's not just out for blood. Jazz. She wants me gone. Everyone thinks I'm screwing Alexander to get ahead. I can't even walk into work without people staring." Jasmine snorted, grabbing a fry from a nearby plate. "Screw 'em. You're smarter than all those suits combined. You caught that contract error, not them. Why you letting some rich bitch get in your head because it's not just her?" Ellie snapped, her voice low but raw. "It's Grayson. The board. The whole damn firm. They're investigating me now, saying I stole files. And out here," she gestured at the diner, "folks think I'm a sellout. I'm losing everything. Jazz." Jasmine's eyes softened, but her tone stayed fierce. "You ain't losing me. Or Marie. You're fighting for her. Right? Don't let those assholes make you quit." Ellie wanted to believe her, but the weight was crushing. She'd joined the pro bono program to help people like Rosa Torres, a single mom facing eviction. But every step felt like wading through mud. At Hunton Langford, Grayson had cornered her in the basement yesterday, his silver hair gleaming under the dim lights. "You're causing trouble, Parker," he'd said, his voice dripping with condescension. "We're looking into those notes you sent Hunt. If you took confidential files, you're done." She denied it, her heart pounding. But the threat lingered. Sophia's fake email was a ticking bomb, and Ellie had no proof to clear her name. Back at the diner, her shift dragged on, the crowd thinning as midnight approached. She was refilling ketchup bottles when her phone buzzed a text from the hospital Marie Parker admitted. "Emergency procedure needed. Payment of $20,000 required." Ellie's knees buckled, her hand gripping the counter. Marie's heart had been stable, or so she'd thought. She called the hospital, her voice shaking. What happened? She was fine yesterday. Her condition deteriorated rapidly. The nurse said, clinical but kind. She needs surgery tonight. We'll need payment arrangements before we proceed. Ellie hung up, her vision blurring. 20 grand. She didn't have $20, let alone thousands. The diner's tips, her janitor pay. Every cent went to rent and Marie's meds. She thought of the pro bono program. the dream of law school, the boardroom where she'd stood tall. It all felt like a cruel joke now, a game she'd never win. Jasmine, still in the booth, saw her face and rushed over. "Elle, what's wrong? Mom's in surgery." Ellie choked out, tears spilling. "They need money we don't have. I can't do this anymore." Jasmine grabbed her shoulders, her eyes fierce. "You listen to me, Ellie Parker. You've been carrying the world for Marie, for yourself, for years. You're not quitting now. We'll figure this out." "Okay." Ellie shook her head, pulling away. "How?" "Jazz, I'm drowning. The firm's after me. The Post's calling me a whore. And now this. I'm done." She untied her apron, tossing it on the counter, and grabbed her bag. "I'm going to the hospital." Jasmine followed her to the door, her voice urgent. "Elle, don't give up. You're stronger than this shit. You hear me?" Ellie didn't answer, stepping into the cold Queensboro night. The subway ride to the hospital was a blur, the train's rumble matching the chaos in her head. At the hospital, she found Marie in the ICU, tubes snaking from her arms, her face pale under the harsh lights. Ellie sank into a chair beside her, holding her mom's hand, the beeping monitors a cruel countdown. "I'm sorry, Mom," she whispered. "I tried. I really did." She pulled out her phone, opened her email, and typed a resignation letter to Alexander Mr. Hunt. "I'm done being your firm's punching bag. I resign. Effective now. Ellie Parker." Her finger hovered over the send button, her chest tight. She thought of the boardroom, Jasmine's voice, Marie's letter saying, "You need to live your dream." Sending this felt like giving up, like letting Sophia and Grayson win. But what choice did she have? The hospital bill was a wall she couldn't climb, and the rumors had stripped her bare. Her phone buzzed again, an email from Alexander, sent minutes ago. "Ellie, the board's investigation is bullshit. I'm shutting it down. Your work on the Torres case is solid. Stay in the program. We need you. A.H." Ellie stared at the screen, her heart twisting. Alexander, with his cold eyes and Ohio scars, was fighting for her, or was this another trap, another way to keep her in her place? She didn't know. But the words "we need you" hit hard, a lifeline she wasn't sure she could grab. She looked at Marie, her mom's chest rising and falling, and thought of the basement, the law book, the dream she'd clawed for. Jasmine's voice echoed, "You're stronger than this shit." Ellie's finger moved away from the send button. She didn't delete the resignation, but she didn't send it either. Instead, she typed a reply to Alexander, her hand shaking. "Prove the investigation's done, and I'll stay. But I'm not your charity case. E.P." She hit send, her breath hitching. The hospital waiting room was cold, the plastic chairs hard against her back. Ellie sat there, staring at Marie's room through the glass, the weight of the night pressing down, the rumors, Sophia's lies. The hospital bill, they were a storm, and she was barely standing. But Marie's sacrifice, Jasmine's faith, even Alexander's email, were sparks in the dark. She didn't know if she could keep fighting. But she wasn't ready to break. Not yet. Back in Queensboro, the city slept, its neon lights flickering like promises. Ellie closed her eyes, clutching her phone, the unsent resignation a ghost in her inbox. She'd face tomorrow Sophia, the firm, the bills, but tonight, she held on to one truth: she was Ellie Parker. And she wasn't nobody. Not anymore. The Manhattan housing court smelled of old wood and desperation, its worn stone floors echoing with the shuffle of anxious tenants and the sharp clicks of lawyers' heels. Ellie Parker, 25, stood outside courtroom 3, clutching a manila folder stuffed with notes for Rosa Torres's eviction case. Her borrowed blazer too tight at the shoulders, courtesy of Jasmine's closet, itched against her skin, but her brown eyes burned with focus. 2 days ago, she'd been ready to quit Hunton Langford LLP, crushed by rumors, Sophia Langford's lies, and a $20,000 hospital bill for her mom, Marie. Now, she was here, fighting for Rosa, a single mom facing eviction, because of a letter that changed everything. Ellie's phone still held Alexander Hunt's email, sent hours after she'd drafted her resignation in the hospital waiting room. The investigation's done. It was bullshit. Your work on the Torres case is solid. Stay in the program. We need you. She'd replied, half daring him to prove it. And he had. The next morning, a firm memo cleared her name, stating no evidence supported claims of stolen files. Sophia's fake email, the one plastered in the Post, was exposed as a forgery, though her name wasn't mentioned. Typical Hunton Langford, protecting its own. Ellie didn't care. She was back in the pro bono program, not for Alexander, but for Rosa, for Marie, for herself. The courtroom door loomed ahead, its chipped paint a reminder of how many dreams had walked through and never walked out. Ellie's heart pounded, but she thought of Marie, stable after emergency surgery, her weak smile saying, "Keep fighting, baby." She thought of Jasmine, shouting, "You're stronger than this shit." And she thought of Alexander's letter, slipped under her apartment door yesterday by Hank, his gruff driver. "Ellie, you're braver than anyone here. Come back. Not for me, for you. Prove me wrong. A.H." The words, smudged from Queensboro rain, had hit like a spark, reigniting her fire. She'd torn up her resignation and shown up at the firm, ready to swing. Inside the courtroom, Rosa Torres sat on a wooden bench, her worn sweater stretched over her frame, her eyes darting nervously. A single mom of 2. She'd faced a rent hike from $1,200 to $2,000 with no notice, a blatant violation of New York tenant law. Ellie had prepped her for days, coaching her to speak clearly, gathering every scrap of evidence. Rosa wasn't a client to her, she was family. A Queensboro woman fighting the same system that kept Ellie down. "You got this." "Rosa," Ellie said, squeezing her hand. "We're in it together." Rosa nodded, her voice shaky. "I trust you." "Ellie, you're my angel." Ellie's chest tightened. "No angels here, just us, kicking ass." She managed a smile, but her nerves buzzed. She wasn't a lawyer, just a volunteer guiding Rosa to represent herself pro se, whispering advice, passing documents, the opposing counsel. A slick attorney from a big firm lounged at the plaintiff's table, his suit screaming money. Ellie knew his type: overconfident, underprepared, banking on intimidating a poor woman into folding. The judge, a stern man in his 50s with wire-rimmed glasses, called the case: Torres versus Landmark Properties. Rosa stood, her knees trembling, as the attorney launched into his argument, voice smooth as oil. Mrs. Torres failed to pay the increased rent, violating her lease. Eviction is lawful. Ellie scribbled notes, leaning to whisper, "Stay calm. Rosa. He's skipping the notice rule. We've got him." She handed Rosa a highlighted lease, her voice steady. But as Rosa started speaking, "Your Honor, they raised my rent without telling me," the attorney cut in, tossing out legal jargon to confuse her. Ellie's jaw clenched. He was playing dirty, and Rosa was faltering. "Your Honor," Ellie said, standing with the judge's nod. "I'm Ellie Parker, assisting Mrs. Torres as a volunteer." "May I clarify?" The judge raised an eyebrow but gestured to proceed. Ellie stepped forward, her voice clear, slicing through the room's tension. "Under Section 7, Article 223B of New York tenant law, landlords must give 60 days' notice for a rent increase. Mrs. Torres received a text 1 week prior. That's illegal. Here's the lease and the message." She handed over documents, her hands steady despite her racing pulse. The attorney scoffed, flipping through his papers. "This is irrelevant. Precedent shows tenants must comply or face eviction." He cited a case, smirking, thinking he'd outmaneuvered a nobody. Ellie didn't blink. "Your Honor, in Rivera v. Landlord, 2018, the court ruled unlawful rent increases, void eviction proceedings. Mrs. Torres has the right to stay and seek damages." Her voice was sharp, precise, every word a weapon. The attorney fumbled, his smirk fading, as the judge nodded, reviewing the evidence. But then, a hitch. Rosa's lease was missing a key signature page, the one proving she'd signed before the hike. The attorney pounced, claiming it invalidated her claim. Ellie's stomach dropped. She'd checked the file a dozen times, but the page was gone. She whispered to Rosa, "Did you keep a copy at home?" Rosa shook her head, tears welling. The judge's eyes narrowed, his pen poised to rule. Ellie's mind raced, her dream of helping Rosa crumbling. Then a soft cough from the back row caught her ear. Hank, Alexander's driver, stood there, his weathered face unreadable. He slipped a folded paper to a court clerk, who passed it to Ellie. She opened it, a photocopy of the missing lease page, stamped with Rosa's signature. Hank gave a subtle nod, then slipped out. Ellie's heart leaped. How the hell had he gotten it? She didn't have time to wonder. "Your Honor," she said, handing over the page, "this completes the lease. It proves Mrs. Torres's tenancy predates the illegal hike." The attorney objected, but the judge silenced him, scanning the document. Minutes stretched like hours, Rosa gripping Ellie's hand, the courtroom air thick with hope and fear. The judge cleared his throat. Eviction request denied. Landmark Properties is ordered to pay damages to Mrs. Torres under applicable law. Rosa burst into tears, hugging Ellie so tight she couldn't breathe. "You saved me," she sobbed. "My kids have a home because of you." Ellie's eyes stung, her voice soft. "You fought, Rosa. I just had your back." The judge nodded at her, a rare smile creasing his face. "Well done, Miss Parker. You're prepared like a seasoned attorney." Ellie smiled, her heart pounding. "Thank you, Your Honor. I just wanted justice for Mrs. Torres." In the back row, Alexander Hunt sat unnoticed, his gray suit blending into the crowd. He'd come after Hank mentioned Ellie's court date, intending only to observe. But watching her steady, fierce, fighting for a stranger with nothing to gain, his chest tightened. She wasn't just brilliant. She was a force. A woman who reminded him of the Ohio kid who dreamed of justice before money and power buried him. In that moment, as Ellie stood tall, her voice ringing with moral clarity, he knew he didn't just respect her. He loved her not for saving his firm's contract, but for her heart, the kind that fought for the forgotten. He slipped out before she saw him, his pulse racing, unsure if he could ever deserve her. Outside the courtroom, Ellie stood in the morning light, Manhattan skyscrapers looming like giants. Rosa held her hand, repeating, "You're my angel." Ellie shook her head. "Just doing what's right. Rosa, keep your head up." "Okay." As Rosa left, Ellie breathed in the crisp air, her body buzzing with victory. She'd won not just for Rosa, but for herself. The boardroom, the basement. Sophia's lies, they hadn't broken her. Her phone pinged an email from Alexander Parker. The board's approved a legal fellows program for non-traditional candidates. You're in. Paid, if you want it. No charity. You earned it. A.H. Ellie's breath caught. A paid fellowship. A real shot at law. Not just pro bono scraps. She thought of Marie, Jasmine, Rosa, the dream she'd clawed for. But she also thought of Alexander, his letter, his email, the way he'd cleared her name. Was he for real? Or was this another suit playing games? She typed a reply, her fingers steady. "I'm in. Hunt. But as an equal. Don't think you're saving me. I save myself. E.P." She hit send, a smile tugging at her lips. She wasn't his project, his charity case, or his janitor. She was Ellie Parker, and she was done doubting herself. Back at the hospital, she sat by Marie's bed, her mom's face brighter post-surgery. "You look happy, baby," Marie said, squeezing her hand. Ellie told her about Rosa, the courtroom, the fellowship. "I'm fighting." "Mom," she said, her voice thick. "For you, for us." Marie smiled, her eyes shining. "I always knew you would." Ellie left the hospital, stepping into Queensborough's chaos car horns, street vendors, neon lights. The rumors still lingered. Sophia's shadow wasn't gone, and Marie's bills were a mountain. But today, she'd stood tall, won a fight, and claimed a chance. She wasn't out of the woods, but she was standing, fists up, ready for whatever came next. The city pulsed around her, and for the first time in weeks, Ellie felt like she could breathe. The conference room on the 42nd floor of Hunt & Langford LLP was a battlefield, its polished mahogany table reflecting the harsh glare of LED lights, like a mirror for egos. Ellie Parker, 25, stood at one end. Her borrowed blazer swapped for a crisp button-down she'd splurged on with her first legal fellows paycheck. Her brown eyes were steady, her hair tied back, but her hands gripped a stack of case notes like a shield. Across the table, Sophia Langford, 32, leaned back in her chair. her blonde hair gleaming, her green dress sharp as a blade. The room buzzed with tension. Grayson, Helen Carter, and 3 senior attorneys watching, their faces a mix of curiosity and skepticism. Ellie had been in the Legal Fellows program for 2 weeks. Her courtroom win for Rosa Torres still fresh, but today, Sophia was out for blood. The meeting was supposed to be a review of the fellows' first case analyses, but Sophia had turned it into a trap. "Miss Parker," she said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness, "your report on the international trade dispute is interesting, almost identical to Grayson's draft from last month. Care to explain how a janitor got access to his work?" Ellie's stomach dropped, her pulse spiking. The accusation hung heavy, the room's eyes pinning her like a bug. Sophia's lips curled, her green eyes glinting with triumph. She'd been gunning for Ellie since the boardroom incident, her post-article and fake email already exposed as lies. But this was a new low claiming Ellie stole Grayson's work to discredit her fellowship. Grayson shifted uncomfortably, his silver hair catching the light. But he didn't deny it. The coward. Ellie's fists clenched, her nails digging into her palms. She thought of Marie, recovering in Queensboro, of Rosa's tearful hug in court, of Jasmine's voice, "Don't let those assholes win. She wasn't going down without a fight. That's a hell of a claim." "Langford," she said, her voice low but sharp. "You saying I stole Grayson's work? Prove it." Sophia laughed, a brittle sound, tossing a printed report onto the table. "The similarities are obvious. Same case citations, same arguments. You expect us to believe a cleaner came up with this on her own?" Ellie's heart raced, but she kept her cool, scanning the report. She'd spent nights in the firm's law library, poring over trade law, crafting every word herself. This was a setup. But she'd be damned if she let Sophia win. "Funny," she said, her voice cutting through the room, "because I noticed something in your last case. Langford, the Chen v. Global Imports filing. You misquoted Article 74 of the CISG, claiming unlimited damages. That's a rookie mistake, and it nearly cost the client millions. Want to talk about competence?" The room went still, the attorneys exchanging glances. Sophia's smile froze, her cheeks flushing as she fumbled for a response. "That's irrelevant," she snapped, but her voice wavered. "This is about your misconduct." "No," Ellie said, stepping forward, her eyes locked on Sophia's. "This is about you being scared I'm better than you. I didn't steal shit. I wrote that report from scratch. And if Grayson's draft looks like mine, maybe he's the one copying me." A gasp rippled through the room, Grayson sputtering. But Ellie didn't stop. "You've been gunning for me since I fixed your contract error. Langford, you can't stand that at Queensboro nobody's outshining you." Helen Carter, the supervising attorney, raised a hand, her voice calm but firm. "Enough. Miss Parker, your report's originality will be verified. Miss Langford, baseless accusations won't be tolerated." She nodded at Ellie. "Well argued. You may go." Ellie walked out, her legs shaking but her head high. She'd faced Sophia down, turned the tables, but the victory felt hollow. The whispers followed her janitor girl, troublemaker, and she knew this wasn't over. Sophia wouldn't stop, and the firm's board was still watching, waiting for her to slip. She headed to the basement, her old janitor shift a reminder of how fragile her place was, even as a fellow. Downstairs, the moldy air hit her like a slap, the flickering lights casting shadows over stacks of files. She sank into her chair, her law book open but untouched, her mind spinning. She'd won in court for Rosa, stood up to Sophia. But the weight of it all, Marie's bills, the rumors, the endless fight to be seen was crushing her. She pulled out her phone, scrolling to Alexander's email from 2 weeks ago. "We need you." Did he mean it? Or was he just playing savior to ease his own guilt? A knock broke her thoughts. Hank, Alexander's driver, stood in the doorway, his weathered face kind but serious. "Got something for you, kid," he said, handing her a sealed envelope. "From the boss. Don't shoot the messenger." He winked and left, his boots echoing up the stairs. Ellie opened it, her heart pounding. Inside was a hospital receipt, stamped, paid in full for Marie's $20,000 surgery, dated the day after her emergency. A handwritten note was clipped to it, "Ellie. You'd never accept this, so I didn't ask. You deserve to fight without breaking. This isn't pity, it's belief. A.H. Her breath caught, tears burning her eyes. Alexander had paid for Marie's surgery. Without telling her, she felt a surge of anger he had no right, but also something else, something softer, dangerous, gratitude, trust. She stormed to the 42nd floor, ignoring the receptionist's protests, and barged into Alexander's office. He was at his desk, sleeves rolled up, Manhattan skyline glittering behind him. His blue eyes flicked up, startled but steady. "Parker," he said, leaning back. "Something on your mind." "Why the hell didn't you tell me?" Ellie said, slamming the receipt on his desk, her voice trembling. "You paid for my mom's surgery. I didn't ask for your damn charity." Alexander stood, his jaw tight, but his voice was calm. "I know you didn't. That's why I didn't tell you. You'd have thrown it back in my face, and Marie would have suffered. I couldn't let that happen." "So you just decide for me," Ellie snapped, tears spilling despite herself. "You think I'm some broken thing you need to fix. I've been fighting my whole life. Hunt. I don't need you playing hero." He stepped closer, his eyes intense. Not cold, but raw. "I'm not playing hero. Ellie, I did it because I believe in you. Because I love you, not your pain, not your struggle. You, the woman who faced down a boardroom, who saved Rosa's home, who makes me want to be better than the asshole I've been." His voice cracked, and he ran a hand through his hair, vulnerable in a way she'd never seen. "I didn't tell you because I knew you'd think it was pity. It's not. It's me, betting on you." Ellie froze, her heart pounding so loud she swore he could hear it. Love Alexander Hunt, the untouchable CEO. Loved her. She thought of his letter, his emails, the way he'd cleared her name. He wasn't just a suit, he was a man, scarred like her, fighting his own ghosts. But her pride, her fear, screamed warnings. "You don't get to buy me," she said, her voice softer now, shaking. "I'm not your project, your charity case. I'm my equal." He finished, his voice firm, stepping so close she could smell his cologne, sharp and warm. "You've always been my equal. Ellie, I'm not trying to save you. I'm asking to stand beside you, if you'll let me." She looked into his eyes, seeing not pity but truth. A man who'd risen from nothing, like her, and saw her for who she was. Her anger melted, replaced by a warmth she couldn't name. She thought of Marie, smiling in the hospital, of Rosa's kids safe at home, of Jasmine's faith. She'd fought alone for so long, but maybe she didn't have to. "I'm not saying yes," she said, her voice steady but thick. "But I'm not saying no. I'll stay in the program, keep fighting, but I'm doing it my way. Hunt, as your equal, not your debt." He nodded, a faint smile breaking through, the first real one she'd seen. "Deal. Parker. Your way." She turned to leave, her heart racing, but paused at the door. "Thank you," she said, barely a whisper. "For Mom. But don't pull that shit again." He laughed, a low, genuine sound, and she walked out, her steps lighter, her resolve ironclad, back in Queensboro. Ellie sat by Marie's bed, the apartment's leaky faucet dripping in the background. Marie, stronger now, held her hand. "You're shining, baby," she said, her voice warm. Ellie told her about Sophia, the courtroom, Alexander's confession. "He loves me. Mom," she said, her voice soft, uncertain. "I don't know what to do with that." Marie smiled, squeezing her hand. "You don't have to know yet. Just keep being you. That's enough." Ellie nodded, tears pricking her eyes. She thought of the basement, the Post article, the hospital bills. Sophia was still out there, the firm's board still watching. But today, she'd faced her fears, claimed her place. She wasn't just a janitor, not just a fellow, she was Ellie Parker. And she was enough. As she drifted to sleep, Alexander's words echoed, "I love you." She wasn't ready to say it back, but for the first time, she believed she could be loved, not for what she lacked, but for who she was. The Manhattan housing court wasn't exactly a chapel, with its scuffed linoleum floors and wooden benches worn smooth by years of anxious hopes. But on a sunny June morning, it felt like sacred ground to Ellie Parker. At 27, she stood in the courtroom's anteroom, smoothing a knee-length white dress she'd found at a Queensboro thrift shop, its soft cotton hem embroidered with tiny daisies she'd sewn herself. In her hands, a bouquet of wildflowers plucked from a community garden in Prospect Park smelled of earth and second chances. Her brown hair fell in gentle waves, her hazel eyes bright with a joy she'd fought tooth and nail to claim. Today, she was marrying Alexander Hunt, the man who'd once mocked her as a janitor, but now stood by her as an equal, a partner in love and justice. The courtroom buzzed with a quiet warmth, its plain walls adorned with paper streamers taped up by kids from the Queensboro Community Center. No velvet drapes or chandeliers, just a handful of people who mattered more than any high society crowd. Marie Ellison, Ellie's mom, sat in the front row, her silver hair pulled back, her face glowing with health after a year since her heart transplant. Funded by Alexander's anonymous donation, now a gift Ellie embraced, though she still teased him about his sneaky-ass generosity. Rosa Torres, the single mom Ellie had saved from eviction, clutched a tissue, her daughters giggling beside her. Jasmine Carter, Ellie's best friend and rock, fanned herself with a borrowed program, her nurse's scrubs swapped for a vibrant yellow dress. Hank Rodriguez, Alexander's assistant, sat stiffly in a borrowed suit, his gruff face breaking into a rare smile. Even Helen Carter, the Hunton Langford attorney who'd mentored Ellie in the Legal Fellows program, was there, her stern nod a quiet badge of respect. Ellie peeked through the door, her heart swelling. 2 years ago, she'd been a janitor scrubbing floors in Hunton Langford's basement, her law dreams buried under rumors and hospital bills. Now, she was a licensed attorney, a Brooklyn law school grad who'd passed the New York bar with honors, building a legacy with every pro bono case she took. But this moment marrying Alexander, surrounded by her people, wasn't about titles. It was about proving she belonged, not just in a courtroom, but in a life she'd forged from grit and love. The music started. A soft guitar strummed by Luis, Ellie's roommate and line cook, playing a soulful rendition of Ain't No Mountain High Enough. Jasmine gave Ellie a quick hug, whispering, "You're a damn queen. Elle, go get your man." Ellie laughed, her nerves easing, and stepped into the courtroom, her sneakers spray-painted white for the occasion silent on the floor. Alexander waited at the makeshift altar, his black suit sharp but simple, his blue eyes locking on hers with a warmth that made her breath catch. He wasn't the cold CEO who'd mocked her in a boardroom. He was Alexander, the man who'd bared his scars, fought for her, and loved her fiercely. The judge, the same woman who'd presided over Rosa's case, stood at the bench, her smile soft. "We're here to join Ellie Parker and Alexander Hunt," she said, her voice carrying a hint of amusement. "But I hear they've got a lawyerly twist on their vows." Alexander stepped forward, pulling a folded paper from his pocket, his handwriting crisp on the page. He handed it to Ellie, his eyes glowing. 3 years ago, "I gave you a contract about a future," he said, his voice low but clear. "Today, I'm signing a new one, with forever in mind." Ellie opened it, her tears blurring the words, "Soul Clause, Ellie Parker and Alexander Hunt vow to love, honor, and fight for justice together. Always." She laughed, her voice trembling. "You still can't say it like a normal person, can you?" He took her hands, his grip warm, his voice thick. "I love you, Ellie. Not because you're the best damn lawyer I know, but because you taught me to live with heart. I want to spend my life learning from you, fighting beside you, being yours." Ellie squeezed his hands, her gaze unwavering. "I love you, Alexander, not for opening doors, but for believing in me when I couldn't. I'm signing this contract as your equal, your partner, to build something real together." She signed the paper. He signed, and the crowd chuckled. Marie wiping tears, Jasmine whooping. "That's my girl," the judge smiled. "By the authority vested in me, I pronounce you husband and wife. Kiss her, Alexander." He pulled Ellie close, his lips meeting hers in a kiss that was soft but fierce, a promise sealed. The room erupted claps, cheers, Rosa's daughters giggling, Hank's gruff. "About time." Ellie laughed against Alexander's chest, her heart so full it ached. After the ceremony, everyone gathered in the courthouse's small backyard, where folding tables held pizza from Fat Joe's, lemonade brewed by Marie, and cookies baked by Rosa. Kids ran wild, chasing each other with paper flowers pinned to their shirts. Ellie and Alexander moved through the crowd, hand in hand, accepting hugs and laughter. Rosa pulled Ellie aside, her eyes shining. "You gave me my life back," she said, pressing a hand-knit scarf into Ellie's hands. "This ain't much, but it's from my heart." Ellie hugged her tight, tears pricking. "It's everything. Rosa, keep fighting." "Okay." She felt Rosa's strength, a mirror of her own, a reminder of why she'd never stopped. Jasmine raised a plastic cup of lemonade, her voice carrying. "Yo, everybody, listen up." To Ellie and Alexander kicking ass, taking names, and proving Queensboro don't quit. The crowd cheered, cups clinking, and Ellie laughed, leaning into Alexander. He kissed her temple, whispering, "You're my home, Parker." The sun dipped low, casting golden light over the backyard. Marie stood, her voice steady despite her tears. "Ellie, you carried me when I was down," she said, her hand on her heart. "You're my hero, baby. And Alexander, you're family now. Keep her shining." The crowd clapped, Ellie's tears falling freely as she hugged her mom, feeling the weight of their journey hospital bills, basement nights, dreams that refused to die. Ellie took the makeshift mic, her voice thick but clear. "I'm not good at speeches," she said, wiping her eyes. "But thank you, Marie, Jasmine, Rosa, Hank, everyone. You believed in me when I was just a janitor with a law book. I used to think I didn't belong, but you showed me I do. This," she gestured at the crowd, at Alexander, at the wildflowers. "This is my home." Her voice broke, and the crowd roared, Jasmine shouting, "Damn right." El Rosa's daughters ran up, hugging her legs, and Ellie laughed, her heart whole. As dusk settled, Ellie and Alexander slipped into the courthouse garden, where crabgrass mixed with patches of clover. The Queensboro skyline loomed in the distance, neon lights flickering like stars. "You okay?" Alexander asked, his arm around her, his voice soft. "More than okay," Ellie said, tilting her head to meet his eyes. "I was so damn scared." Alexander. "Scared I'd never be enough. Scared I'd lose you. Lose myself. But this," she waved at the crowd. "The laughter. The love. This is real. We built this. You built it," he said, his voice fierce. "You're the fire. Ellie, I'm just lucky to stand in your light." She kissed him, slow and deep, the world fading until it was just them. The kids' laughter echoed, Rosa's voice singing an old Spanish lullaby, Marie's soft hum joining in. Ellie felt it then, a certainty, no rumor, no boardroom. Could shake. She'd fought for Marie, for Rosa, for Alexander, and won something bigger, a life where she belonged, not because of a degree or a suit, but because of her heart. Back at Hunt and Langford. Ellie's office, once a janitor's break room, now held a nameplate, Ellie Parker. Esca. She'd expanded the pro bono program, representing hundreds, from single moms to immigrant families, each case a brick in a better world. She visited Queensboro schools, telling kids, "You don't need privilege to change shit. You just need heart. Alexander, her partner in work and life, stood beside her, his own ideals rekindled. The Ohio kid who dreamed of justice alive again. The wedding party lingered, music blasting from a Bluetooth speaker. Biggie, then Marvin Gaye, Queensborough's heartbeat. Ellie and Alexander danced, her sneakers scuffing the grass, his suit jacket tossed aside. Jasmine joined, pulling Marie into a clumsy twirl, Rosa's daughters giggling as Hank clapped along. Sophia Langford wasn't there. Her influence faded after Ellie's boardroom takedown. But Ellie didn't care. She'd won by being herself, not by beating Sophia's game. As stars emerged, Ellie leaned into Alexander, whispering, "Thank you for seeing me." He kissed her forehead, his voice a vow. "Always, Ellie, always." They didn't need a guest list or Manhattan's polish. They had Queensborough's grit, a love forged in struggle, a community that didn't need to be perfect, just true. Ellie looked at the skyline, her legacy unfolding. Proof that a janitor's daughter could write her own law-love, justice, never giving up. The future wasn't easy cases piled up. Bills lingered, but with Alexander's hand in hers, Marie's smile, and Queensborough's heart, Ellie was ready, a flame that wouldn't fade. Thanks for rooting for Ellie and Alexander. If justice fires you up, subscribe to Soul Stories and share your story in the comments.